Howdy, lieutenants and economists.
The most volatile, evil, disgusting things on the planet, humans. If you have a video request, you can always go to assholeconsulting.com.
Yeah, I am gonna charge you, kids. And that is the importance of not fucking up.
You are such an asshole!
Hello everybody, this is the old captain here, and this is a video request, a very interesting video request I might say, and if you have a video request, you can always send it here. Go to assholeconsulting.com, and I'll send you my direction. This guy paid a hefty price because I had to go and pull some research, and I guess I could update it a little bit, but frankly, I'm going to let the left do it. Why is it the right always has to go and fucking pull the data and do the number crunching? It's just, and then on top of the leftists are just going, yeah, and that's the response for everything when you get them into a corner. But well, I'll read the email here, and I think it's a lesson we can all learn from, and the left can learn from it too if they care to listen. But they have their narrative; they got to go with it. Hi, Aaron. I have recently engaged in a debate with a leftist who drove home the idea that in order to fix the deficits, corporate taxes have to be increased. I have been under the assumption that increasing corporate taxes would just be passed down to the consumer, increase outsourcing, and reduce investment. You are correct. However, I looked at historical data and cannot find any ammunition that would demonstrate a reduction of economic activity as a result of increased corporate taxes. The leftists used the United States' golden years as an example of booming or economic boom during the high corporate taxes. So if you didn't know, the corporate taxes were much higher, 50% up until Reagan reduced them. I think even higher back in the old days when we had our glory days in the 50s and 60s. I counter with the lack of competition that the European zone devastated, which resulted in the golden years in the States. He directed the burden of proof onto my claims, and I could not muster up anything of value. I feel it's hard to link the two factors among the abandoned state monetary policy intervention. Any insight on the matter is appreciated. Feel free to make a video or what have you. Your viewers might find the answer interesting too. Cheers, Dan. So here's the deal. When you're dealing with any argument, doesn't have to be with a leftist, you have to get your premises correct, and you have to get your definitions very correct. And this is where the left will be very manipulative and snake oily. So let us understand flawed premise number one. There are no such things as corporations. Corporations are owned by people, and I know the left likes to think that corporations are only owned by evil rich people, but the truth is most corporations are majority owned by pensions and retirement plans and financial institutions. And you say, well, what are pension, financial plans, and retirement plans and financial institutions? Well, those are your 401ks and, well, your pension plans that everybody owns. So I know that there's rich in the world, in the country, and they own a disproportionate percentage relative to their population percentage, because they may have worked harder or deserved it more. Fuck that. But because there's so many normal people who do work and contribute to 401ks, IRAs, and have pensions as well, the pensions are much larger than the Bill Gateses of the world, because there's only one Bill Gates, and there's 299 million other Americans that aren't Bill Gates. So when you say, let's tax the corporations, no. You're not just taxing rich people, or I always loved, like, corporations were like this sentient, independent being that had its own consciousness and intelligence. No, they're not. They're owned by everyday average people. They are very democratized in the United States. A lot of people own a lot of stock. So if you're jacking up taxes, you're taking income out of the hands of pretty much everyday normal people. Again, yes, disproportionately some rich people because they have a pluralistic or a disproportionate percentage of ownership of stocks. But it's I don't know, it's you're still throwing the baby out with the bathwater, or whatever analogy that is escaping me now. You're still hurting the average schmo, right? So get this out of your head. The corporations are some magical evil entity out there that stand on their own and are not people. All economic entities, all of them, are at their atomic level, are individuals. The government, nonprofits, corporations, your local Dungeons and Dragons club, everything is formed by humans. And so if you're going to attack an entity, you got to realize that humans are the ones that are going to pay. So understand that. You're just asking other people to pay more in taxes. Flawed premise number two. It is that the corporate tax rate needs to be increased. to lower the deficits. Well, why not other taxes? Why corporate taxes? Again, this gets to the lack of thinking and the complete misinformation that leftists have. They're just so I wish we could pull off a coup d'etat like that to get rightists all pissed off and mind-numbingly absent of saying, well, yeah, there's this entity called corporations. We just tag them. They're the cause of all the problems. It's I just like, why not a sales tax? Why not a sin tax? Why? I mean, you know why you get to park for free in Vegas? Because the casinos are very efficient. There's essentially a gambling tax so that they can get you free food, discounted lodge. You ever wonder why flights to Vegas are so cheap? You ever wonder why there aren't any income taxes in Nevada? I wonder why. They got a huge sin tax. So there are other things, there are other taxes that are much better for the economy. The corporate taxes are the dumbest thing. Any business tax is the dumbest thing because you're literally shooting a bullet into the engine of economic growth. So you deter investments. Investors are like, I'm going to pay what, 50%? Fuck you, I'll go somewhere else. I'm not going. And then without that investment, you don't have employment. Without that money there, you don't have innovation. You'll have innovation in other countries. It'll give them the economic and technological edge, but not if you're going to go and jack up corporate taxes. That's going to go other places. And ultimately, you kill labor, you kill innovation, and you kill investment, you kill economic growth. Right? So there are way better technology. Every tax will, by its nature, detract from economic growth. And I can't even say that's true because if you were to take taxes and invest them wisely in infrastructure that would help supplement economic growth, that would be good. But, and I've displayed this amply, I did a very clear, recent, precise study as to the causes of the deficit. The causes of our deficit is not wise investment. It's pissing it away on people who plain don't fucking work. And maybe not necessarily out of laziness, like if you look at Social Security, well, these people are retired. It still doesn't change the fact that they're going to work. Or Medicare, Medicare. We're investing billions, hundreds of billions over the time, trillions of dollars in people who are going to die relatively soon. I know that may not sound polite or kind, but that doesn't change the fact that's not an investment. Investing in a 20-year-old's engineering degree, that's an investment. Investing in Gertrude's bladder at the age of 83 that might last another 6 months, that's not an investment. Anyway, getting back to the original point, in the United States, it's not a debate about whether we need to pay for the deficit. What we need is a spending or a revenue issue. To every leftist, it's a revenue issue. They need more money, more money, more money. What we need to do is spend less on worthless things. And I'm not saying humans are worthless. Some humans are worthless, by the way. You better get used to that fact. I'm saying economically worthless things that don't have a rate of return. That's not an investment. Roads, yes. Infrastructure of some kind, sure. Electric grid, whatever. Defense, a judicial system, make things legal. Anti-corruption units, that would be a great way to spend some corporate, some tax dollars. But when you give it to, Welfare Joe and Snap Mom and 14 illegitimate Octomom over there, that is not going to give a positive rate of return. So that's not going to increase economic growth. That's not really going to solve your deficit problem. So we have to lower spending. That's neither here nor there. So you should find, with flawed premise number 2, we should find taxes that do allow us to maintain a government, maintain law, infrastructure, roads, defense, other things like that. And there are much more efficient ways to do it than scaring the piss out of all our investors and developers and corporations and employers and businesses. Flawed premise number 3. Why do we have to increase taxes to reduce the deficit? If you look at any deficit reduction, look at Bill Clinton's the deficit reduction to the point that we actually had a surplus. Last time we had a surplus was under President Bill Clinton's 96, 97, 98. I'd have to look back. And why was it? Bill Clinton actually did not increase taxes all that much. If you look at it, I think he kept it pretty much the same, in part because of the Republican Congress and Newt Gingrich. But why did the deficit decrease so much to the point it was a surplus? Well, the economy was booming during the dot-com mania, by which no thanks to any politician. It was technology, innovation, those nasty, evil corporations. Ooh, gross. Because we were booming. I don't know if you were old enough to remember it, but God, unemployment dropped below 4%. You millennials don't even know what that is. You don't have ever even experienced that. Like, we're all excited because unemployment finally dropped below 6. That's like been recession time the entire time. But the way you get out of a deficit and debt problems is you get your economy to boom and grow. And that's why they always have this measure of deficit or debt to GDP. Because, like, let's say I'm an average guy and I have $100,000 in debt. You go, oh, geez, that's pretty bad, Clary. Well, yeah, for the average guy who has an average income of, say, $40,000, that's pretty bad. But what if I make $10 million a year? Well, that $100,000 in debt does nothing relative to my income. It's the same thing with GDP. If we get our GDP and our economy to boom and grow, it will, as a percentage, moot or negate or lessen the severity of our debt and our deficits. That's why you never see total debt. Well, you will, but you always see them more. Media's been getting better at this, is quoting it as a percentage of GDP. So what was I going to say with that? So why not try to instill government policies and taxation policies, all the other policies that would get economic growth to boom? I say get rid of corporate taxes. I say we put it into a flat sales tax. I say we get rid of the fucking IRS. I say we open up the full throttle. There's so many things we could do to get the economy to boom that is not increasing corporate tax. Corporate taxes would slow the economy down. Trust you me. Well, I guess that's the whole thing. Yeah, don't trust me. I'll show it. I'll prove it to you later. Don't worry. We're on our way there. But increasing corporate taxes would slow economic growth. So let's try and boom economic growth instead. But something tells me the left doesn't want corporations to have better economic growth. We don't want higher economic. They just want their other people's blood. They want other people's money because they're just envious, greedy bastards. So there is that. All right, now, so those are the flawed premises. Now, there's one thing where he's blatantly wrong. I don't know how he threw it back on you. You answered the question where you said, well, the reason that the U.S. economy was booming back in the 50s and 60s was because we were the only game in town. He just prove it. It's like, you don't have to prove it. We just had a whole fucking, World War II that did it. What do you mean prove it? Pretty much the entire world's industrial base was wiped out. The United States was pretty much left alone. Japan destroyed China. We destroyed Japan. The Russians destroyed Germany. Germany destroyed Russia. Russia came back and destroyed Germany. That was until then Britain and Germany destroyed themselves. Germany destroyed France, but then France and Britain joined us in destroying Germany, and then we also destroyed Italy along. There was nothing left. There was nothing fucking left. Nothing. I mean, that is in part, then here we are sitting in between two big oceans, and well, at least our electricity is running here. Of course. You could have had a corporate tax rate of 75%. Everyone would have still come here because we were the only ones that weren't bombed to shit. So I don't know. I would have just said, really? And then you got to understand, when you debate with leftists, you're not debating with sane, rational people that are going to give you any credits or points for honesty, logic, reason, even fact, even statistics. They're always going to question it because their ultimate goal is not finding out what truth is. Their ultimate goal is validating their religion, and that is socialism. That's it. That's all they want. So they say, well, how can you prove it? What do you mean, how can I prove it? It's history. It's fact. What else do you want me to say? The United States was not the only game in town. There was some other country out there that was comparable to the United States. So you gotta. I think many people on the right or libertarians are so because they're intellectually honest. And if any time they're accused of being wrong or that they can't support something, they assume this person must be right. They assume they must be wrong because they have intellectual integrity. So you always assume no, don't assume you're wrong. Was it not the fact that the United States was the only thing left? Yes. I don't know. And then at that point, I know you want to try to win. You can't win a debate with leftists. They're not capable of it because they're delusional. They're always right all the time because their ego is going to get in the way. So you're not dealing with the same. You and I could have a disagreement. It wouldn't even be heated. It would be more of a fact-based finding mission. Well, let's go on the internet and find out. So, But not with the leftists. With socialists and leftists, most of them, every great once in a while I'll run into an intellectually honest one. And at least they're honest about it. Say, yeah, I believe in Marxism. And I don't believe that the ultimate economic goal of humanity is to increase standards of living and it should be money and da-da-da-da-da. So at least you get some intellect, and they're out there. They're out there. But you'll kind of know right off the bat because they're not assholes. They're actually intellectually honest, nice people. They just like it's like Christians. I think Christianity is dumber than shit. I think all religions are dumber than shit. But I got a lot of Jewish friends, I got a lot of Muslim friends, I got a lot of Christian friends. Because they're nice people. They just admit, we don't know, but that's what we call it a belief. Anyway, that's very, very rare with a leftist. Most leftists use socialism and that ideology as a substitute for religion, while ironically slamming on Christianity for the evils of shit from Lord knows how many years ago. Now, if he wants proof, I'm going to give you some proof, and this is very little. I came up with this. This is almost 10 years old, so I'd be very curious to see what it looks like now. But the correlation coefficient, and what I've done, I'll explain this, because I want to know for a fact myself what happens to economies that have higher versus lower corporate tax rate. What happens to their economic growth? So I did two charts in two different time frame periods, and this was when the OECD was this is 10 years ago, so I took all the data that the OECD had, and you're saying, well, who's the OECD? The OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's basically just the economic database for first world countries. So this at the time was all the economic data we had. And so I pulled a 5 and a 10-year longitudinal average between their corporate tax rate and their economic growth. And the correlation coefficient, meaning the relationship between that, is a minus 0.7. It's a minus 0.72 if you do the 2-year thing, and I'll throw up those charts here. But right there's your answer. As far as my data has told me, and I'm sure I should update it, but again, I want the leftists to do this, and even then I wouldn't trust them because they pull out some key data points. It's a negative correlation. So if taxes go up, economic growth has a tendency, not always, but it roughly translates statistically speaking, a 70% chance of going down. Now keep in mind, this data did not include Singapore, China, and Russia, which I think have since been added. So, and those economies have been booming. So I'd be very, very curious to see that. And I think maybe I will go back and pull it. But knowing the boom that has occurred in the past 10, 12 years with those economies, and Singapore and China and Russia and Hong Kong have Singapore doesn't have a corporate tax rate. I think Hong Kong doesn't have one either. China has some token tax rate. And Russia, I think it's only like 10 or 15% or something. So throwing those into the mix, among some other, we'd probably throw India, Brazil maybe in there. We'd have to see what data is available. I think it just either stay at a negative 0.7 or even get stronger, maybe a negative 0.8. But again, that's to be determined. Thus far, he's wrong. This is not a flawed premise. This is not an error on his part. This is not him oopsing. He's just wrong. He is factually wrong. And given I hate to besmirch both of you, the elementary level of debate where it's like, well, yeah, it was World War II. Well, that's because... Did anyone look it up? Did anyone pull data? No one pulled data. No one looked at it. So I'm imagining this is a college level debate. Oh, yeah, thank you. I really needed that. Fucking malware. Hey, it's time to scan again. Anyway, so I'm gonna leave with one final thing, and this speaks directly to the chart I just showed you, and the entire premise I think that your leftist is arguing about, and that is that the bait or the nub he points out to is that you can't prove it was the post World War II economy. Well, that's what is that? 60 years old? Is that from the 50s and 60s? You have to understand something about economics. It doesn't remain constant all the time. There are very few laws. And the data I got is way more recent and way more applicable to today's economy than the shit he's claiming. Well, you know, back in 1955, with really high corporate taxes. Yeah, well, in 1955, like, Sophia Loren was hot and I'd do her. Not now. I mean, she's still a gorgeous woman by, for her age, but I wouldn't do her now. 55, hell's to the yes. Today, no. Things change. Economies change. And as do the underlying international dynamics of the world global economy. So, you have to admit, World War II was kind of a one-off event. Wasn't exactly ceteris paribus. And so, you got to see what happens later. And what's happened later is that, without a major war destroying all of the globe's manufacturing production, except for one country, the correlation coefficient, the relationship between corporate taxes and economic growth is negative. So, the final bit of data I'm going to give you is here. All you have to do, I know it's anecdotal, but I'm going to show you another chart to kind of show you what's happening in the real world today. Why do you think Google, GE, and Apple have hundreds of billions of dollars parked overseas? Why do you think corporations have trillions of dollars parked overseas? Because they don't want to pay the taxes. I know it's anecdotal. I'm not saying we're going to run correlation coefficients or anything like that, but why do you think they do that? It's a very simple, logical question. I know everyone likes to focus on statistics and studies. I have very simple questions because sometimes academic studies, especially in the liberal arts, get so far removed from being a somewhat of a science and is just turned into mere political pawnsmanship that you have to ask simple questions because logic will rule in the end. Why do they park their money overseas? Because they don't want to pay the fucking taxes. Oh! Now, what would happen if we got rid of corporate taxes and also we were just deluged with $2 trillion of corporate investment? What do you think would happen? Good or bad? It's this logic. And heck, now you even see, Medtronic, a local company here in Minnesota. Not anymore. They moved to Ireland. Oh, fuck you, Mark Dayton and Obama. I mean, this shit happens for a reason. All right, you notice how, everyone moved their facilities to China and outsourced all the jobs there? Oh, I wonder why they did that. Maybe it's cheaper labor. No, we can't. That's too large. I want to see a chart. I want to see a study. So I'm going to kind of show you the reverse, kind of reverse engineer a chart to kind of show this. It isn't proof. I'd have to go and look at capital flows. And frankly, I'm too damn lazy, and I know I'm fucking right. So I'll show you this next chart. Okay, this chart showed you the OECD again, and you can rewind and go back to it if you want and see what. But there's the U.S. corporate tax rates, which came down a little bit in Reagan, and then have been flat at 40%. I know it's statutory; it's not effective. That's a completely different debate. But you see our tax rates staying the same, while the rest of the world's basically first world economies are lowering their corporate taxes. Even the socialist Europeans are doing it. Why? Because they want the fucking investment. I mean, honest to God, I'll say it again for the cheap seats. It's like your wife. If you want your wife to stick with you, do you beat her? Do you call her names? Do you kick the shit out of her? Or do you treat her nice? Take her out to dinner every once in a while. All you see with that chart is that other countries are wooing away our investors, our innovators, our corporations, our companies, our employers, and you leftists can go with, "Go, we don't need fucking corporations." Really? Who's gonna pay the bills? Who's gonna make your shit? Who's gonna make that Apple product? Huh? Who's gonna do that? You? The government? You guys are too stupid. You don't major in engineering. You don't major in accounting. You don't know how to make a fucking thing. You don't know how to fix your own goddamn... you don't know how to change oil or fix a carburetor. You don't know how to do anything. You just know how to bitch and whine for other people's money and blame corporations. Fine, they'll go overseas. They'll make other people other things. They'll sell it to us for a profit, and the exchange rates, change. And U.S. tanks against the Chinese yuan, we'll pay more, don't worry about it. We'll import inflation. That's way too advanced. But seriously, why do you think even leftist-leaning Europe is lowering their corporate tax rates? Why do you think they're doing that? And why do you think Asia's doing it? Because they want that investment. They want the jobs. That's how simple it is. So how far do you want, look, I think pretty much roundly have concluded corporate taxes are bad. Pretty much, you could present this to your leftist socialist friend and say, look, here it is. You know, taking all my curse and swearing and name calling out of it. But the reason I curse and swear and name call is because this guy had no intention of being intellectually honest in the first place. He had none. It's like a Christian nut job. You know, it says in the Bible, it says in the Bible, it says in Das Kapital, it says in the Communist Manifesto. My professor says, fuck your professor, fuck Das Kapital, and fuck the Communist Manifesto. What's the real world say? But you're not dealing with a true and genuine scientist or someone who is capable of intellectual honesty. You're dealing with an ideologue. They don't care about anything else in the world except their religion, except their ideology, except leftism and socialism. Why that is, I don't know. I don't know why people are so wedded to Christianity. I don't know why Muslims are killing each other in the Middle East. I don't know why everyone fucking... believes in the fucking global warming, we're all gonna die, and on and on. I don't know. God almighty, even global warming has significantly more statistics, albeit maybe fabricated. At least there's some modicum of data being thrown at that religion, as opposed to religion. But you can't argue with the zealot. You can't argue with someone who's cuckoo for Christian puffs. You're not going to get a Bible thumper, because that's all they have in life. They have nothing else in life. This is what they pride and value themselves on. I am a socialist. I am a vegan. I am a feminist. I am a Christian. You're all a bunch of fucking idiots. So don't try to get too... If this doesn't convince them, chances are you're never going to convince him again, because he's an ideologue. And so all you do, you walk alone knowing you're right. You sadly got to accept that a high percentage of these people are like fucking delusional, and it's going to affect your future. It's going to take away from it. We're not going to have that booming 50s and 40s and 60s again. But I don't think it was ever going to happen in the first place. These people have the right to vote. They vote in lesser incompetent people. They vote in ideologues, and they don't vote in people who get the economy going again. So, like I said, when you tune into my podcast, buy gold and silver. It is insurance against stupid people. Anyway, hope that answered your question. We all learned a little bit of something about corporate taxes. Toodles.